I wrote a book a few years ago called You'll See It When You Believe It, and there's an entire chapter in there called Detachment. And one of the things that Maslow said and taught us is that self-actualizing people are living their life detached from outcome. Detached from outcome. And detached from outcome means that I don't do what I do because of what might show up for me. I'm not motivated by being famous. I'm not motivated by making money. I'm not motivated by other people's approval. I'm motivated by doing what I love and loving what I do, which I'll be talking about in the second principle. And it's the process of doing it and living it and loving it that appeals the most. And it's very difficult in a world which says that you are what you have, and you are what you do, and you are your accomplishments and your achievements and your acquisitions, when you begin to evaluate yourself on the basis of all of these kinds of things. And then attracting those kinds of things becomes the almost paramount motivator of our lives. But to shift away from that, to understand what Thoreau wrote about back there in Concord, Massachusetts, at Walden Pond, when he defined success as advancing confidently in the direction of your own dreams and endeavoring to live the life which you have imagined, then you will meet with a success, unexpected in common hours. And it's one of the most difficult things in Western civilization to get people to understand is that doing what you love and loving what you do is its own reward, and that whatever the universe provides for you in the way of outcome is what you accept. It's fine. So that what you are motivated by is a sense of peace and fulfillment and awareness that I'm doing what I love and loving what I do. And one of the places where attachment shows up most profoundly is in our relationships. That we begin to believe that who we are and our happiness is based upon another person or my family. And there's a wonderful writer who passed away a few years back. His name was Anthony DeMello. He said, the source of all unhappiness in the world is attachment. That if you could learn to detach, and I recommend that you read, You'll See It When You Believe It, that chapter on detachment, because it sort of wrote itself through me. And I have to work at practicing it all the time, having as many children as I have, to understand that I am not the source of their happiness and that they are not the source of mine. And sometimes it sounds almost callous, but this is what he suggests in The Way to Love that'll help you to experience love in a non-attached way. How do you love someone and not be attached to them? And attachment means that I become immobilized if I don't get what it is that I'm seeking. Attachment doesn't mean that I'm not attracted to you, that I don't love you, that I'm not happy with you, that I don't love things. Detachment is about understanding that if what you would like to have from another person is not available, then you don't become immobilized. And he says here are two tests. First, can you say this to other people in a detached way? I am not really attached to you at all. I am merely deluding myself into the belief that without you, I will not be happy. Can you be in a relationship with anyone, including your own children and family, and be able to say to them that I am deluding myself into the belief that without you, I will not be happy? And the second is, this is the toughest one, I think, of all. One that I've met very few people who are in relationships, love relationships, spousal relationships, and so on, who can pass this test. Be able to say to the person you love, I leave you free to be yourself, to think your thoughts, indulge your tastes, follow your inclinations, and behave in ways that you decide are to your liking. You have that freedom, and you have my love in the process. It's a great test, one that I have failed on many occasions in my life, but I'm working on. I haven't failed it so much with my children. Somehow I think the advantage I had in growing up in the way that I did in a series of foster homes until I was almost 10, and being required to go out and earn my way in life, not having someone hand it to me, somehow that gave me the ability to allow my children to be what they needed to be, because I don't think I'd be where I am in my life had someone else handed it to me. And I must say it's one of the great conflicts I've always experienced with my children, is how much do I give of the wonderful abundance that has showed up in my life, and how much do I withhold and allow them to create it for themselves. And I have found that most of the time when I give too much and take over for them and do it for them, that not only do they fall, but I find myself suffering more as well. And that when I allow them to figure out a way to create it for themselves, even if they get a little bit upset about it, that generally speaking, they're more at peace, and so am I.
Willingness. How willing are you to attract into your life what you want and to rid yourself of the excuses? The willingness means suspending all of your blame. It means taking total responsibility for everything that is in your life, including the memes that were handed to you by your well-meaning parents and their neighbors and so on. To say, I did it all. It also means surrendering. Willingness means, in the recovery movement, and many of you know that I have been without alcohol now for 20 years plus, and just gave it up. And the reason that I gave it up, and the reason I was able to do it, was through being willing to say, I surrender. I just let go. And what? Let God, right? And allow this divine source. You see, if the ego was in charge of you, then why would you get old? I was sitting in an interview today with Kenny Blanchard, and he's turning 70 and I'm turning 69. And I said, if the ego was really in charge, we wouldn't be sitting here in these 68-year-old bodies. We'd keep it about 23, wouldn't we? Because, that's when we feel that we're the most powerful, and when we have, but there's something else that's in charge. And not just in charge of our bodies and its aging, but there's something you have to surrender to that's even bigger than all of us. And you have to be willing to do that, to know that everything that you came here to do is a part of that. Willingness means shedding all things that you're unwilling to do. I remember when I did my very first PBS special back in 1999, and I went around the country and I visited PBS stations in every market. It made no difference to me how many people were there, whether it was a tiny little market or a very large market. Whatever they asked me to do, I said, I have nothing on my unwillingness category. And I made over 170 station visits, very often paying my own expenses and living on a very, very tight budget. But I knew that I wanted to take the messages that I'm speaking about here and that I spoke about in my earlier programs, and there was nothing I was unwilling to do. I did it when Erroneous Zones was published back in 1976. Bought up the first 2 printings, went across the country, paid for my own expenses, 14-hour days doing interviews, whatever it might be. Whatever it takes. Just have that willingness. Virginia Woolf. No one's afraid of her, right? She had a wonderful line. She said, arrange whatever pieces come your way. Whatever it is that comes your way, no matter how tough it may be, whatever, arrange whatever pieces come your way and make it work for you. I'd like to speak for just a moment about passion as a principle for eliminating excuses. Create for yourself the habit of enthusiasm about everything. When I watched the interview with Felipe, who was the guy who was the man on wire, he said you have to have passion every single day. And what does the word enthusiasm mean? Entheos, God. Yasm, within, in Greek. The God within. That's the meaning of when you have passion for anything inside of you, you are really, that's God speaking to you. If you have total passion for something and you just won't let go of it, regardless of what the circumstances of your life are, you will find a way. The universe will provide you with a way. The strange synchronistic experiences and serendipities that seem to show up, they show up much more frequently and right on time when you're living from a place of passion. No passion? Continue with your excuses. Passion is the creative source inside of you. Walk with it. I do it every day. Hold hands with it. Make it your number one relationship in life, not to your spouse, not to your children, not even to yourself. Make your number one relationship to your source, to God, to that place from which you returned, to which all things return. Live from a place of passion, and you will be guided.
If you view yourself disrespectfully, you've forsaken or cast aside, or at the very least, you've sullied your connection to the power of intention. It's important that you recognize that your entire worldview is based on how much respect you have for yourself. It has nothing to do with what others may think of you. Your self-respect comes from the self, and the self alone. If you fail to respect yourself, you're showing contempt for the process of creation. How do you return to the self in self-respect? Well, rather than judging those who judge you, thereby lowering your self-respect, send them a silent blessing of forgiveness, and imagine them doing the same toward you. You're connecting to intention and guaranteeing that you'll always respect the divinity that you are. You've cleared the path to be able to enjoy the great power that is yours in that field of intention. 10 ways or 10 steps to practice nurturing your intention to respect yourself at all times. Here's step 1. Look into a mirror. Make eye connection with yourself and say, I love me, as many times as possible during your day. I love me. These 3 magic words help you maintain your self-respect. Your immediate impulse might be to see this as an expression of your ego's desire to be superior to everyone else, but this is not an ego statement at all. It's an affirmation of self-respect. Transcend that ego mind and affirm your love for yourself and your connection to the Spirit of God. This doesn't make you superior to anyone. It makes you equal to all and celebrates that you're a piece of God. Affirm it in order to be respectful of that which intended you here. Affirm it because it's the way you're going to stay connected to your source and regain the power of intention. I love me. Say it proudly and be that image of love and self-respect. Step 2. Write the following affirmation and repeat it over and over again to yourself. I am whole and perfect as I was created. Carry this thought with you wherever you go. Have it laminated and placed in your pocket or on your dashboard or on your refrigerator or even next to your bed. Allow the words to become a source of high energy and self-respect. By simply carrying these words with you and being in the same space with them, their energy will flow directly to you. Over and over, remind yourself, I'm not my body, I'm not my accumulations, I'm not my achievements, I'm not my reputation. I am whole and perfect as I was created. Step 3. Extend more respect to others and to all of life. Perhaps the greatest secret of self-esteem is to appreciate other people more. The easiest way to do this is to see the unfolding of God in them. Look past the judgments of others' appearances, failures and successes, their status in society, their wealth or their lack of it, and extend appreciation and love to the source from which they came. Everyone is a child of God. Everyone. Remember, when you judge another, you do not define them. You define yourself as someone who needs to judge. The same applies to judgments directed at you. Step 4. Affirm to yourself and all others that you meet, I belong. A sense of belonging is one of the highest attributes on Abraham Maslow's pyramid of self-actualization. Feeling that you don't belong or you're in the wrong place can be due to a lack of self-respect. Respect yourself and your divinity by knowing that everyone belongs. This should never come into question. Your presence here in this universe is proof alone that you belong here. The wisdom of creation intended you to be here, in this place, in this family, with these siblings and parents, occupying this precious space in this time. Say it to yourself and say it over and over again. I belong, and so does everyone else. No one is here by accidents. There are no accidents in this universe. Step 5. Remind yourself that you're never alone. My self-respect stays intact as long as I know that it's impossible for me to be alone. I have what I call a senior partner who's never abandoned me and who stuck with me even in moments when I had seemingly deserted my source. I feel that if the universal mind has enough respect to allow me to come here and to work through me and to protect me in times when I strayed onto dangerous non-spiritual turf, then this very partnership deserves my reciprocal respect. Step 6. Respect your body. You've been provided with a perfect body to house your inner invisible being for a few brief moments in eternity. Regardless of its size or shape or color or any imagined infirmities, it's a perfect creation for the purpose that you were intended here for. You don't need to work at getting healthy. Health is something you already have if you don't disturb it. You can begin the fulfillment of this intention to live a life of self-respect by honoring the temple that houses you. Go within, listen to your body, and treat it with all of the dignity and love that your self-respect demands. Step 7. Meditate. Always meditate to stay in conscious contact with your source, which always respects you. I can't say this enough. Meditation is a way to experience what the five senses can't detect. When you're connected to the field of intention, you're connected to the wisdom that's within you. The divine wisdom has great respect for you, and it cherishes you while you're here. Regardless of all that goes on around you, when you enter into that sacred space of meditation, all doubts about your value as an esteemed creation dissolve. You'll emerge from the solemnity of meditation feeling connected to your source and enjoying respect for all beings, particularly yourself. Step 8. Make amends with adversaries. The act of making amends sends out a signal of respect for your adversaries. By radiating this forgiveness energy outward, you'll find this same kind of respectful, positive energy flowing back towards you. If you're filled with rage toward anyone, there's a huge part of you that resents the presence of this debilitating energy. Take a moment right here and now to simply face that person who stands out in your mind as someone you hurt or directed hurt towards you, and tell him or her that you'd like to make amends. You'll notice how much better you feel. The good feeling of having cleared the air is self-respect. It takes much more courage and strength of character and inner conviction to make amends than it does to hang on to the low energy feelings. Step 9. Always remember the self in self-respect. In order to do this, you must recognize that the opinions of others towards you aren't facts, they're opinions. When I speak to an audience of 500 people, there are 500 opinions of me in the room at the end of the evening. I'm none of those opinions. I can't be responsible for how they view me. The only thing I can be responsible for is my own character, and this is true for every single one of us. If I respect myself, then I'm relying on the self in self-respect. And finally, step 10. Always be in a state of gratitude. Be an appreciator rather than a depreciator of everything that shows up in your life. Thank you, God, for everything.
What I'd like to remind all of you, and it's where I took my own take on something called The Secret, which many of you saw the movie of it, and many of you read the books and so on. I had a little different take on that. I said, we do not attract into our lives what we want. We attract what we are. And who we are is really nothing more than the beliefs that we carry around about who we are and what we're capable of doing. For example, if you're a woman, what is it possible for you to do? What did you learn when you were a young girl about what women can do, about what women can't do? When I was in high school, when I graduated from high school in 1958, I think 1 or 2% of the people admitted to medical school and law school were women. Today, a half a century or more later, it's 50%. We've changed. But these memes are things that, we grew up to believe in. What is possible for me, what's not possible for me, what can happen, can I attract something into my life, can I not, and so on. And most of these are just viruses. They're viruses that are in our minds that convince us that we can't change, we can't make things happen, or we can make things happen, but somebody else has to do it for us. You are the product of all of the choices that you've made up until now in your life. And you say, well, wait a minute, I'm shy, and I was shy as a little kid, and I learned all of this from my mother who told me that I couldn't do this. And I said, and were there other kids who had mothers who told them that and ignored that? Well, yeah, we had a few kids like that in our well, so they didn't choose that, and you did. So I'm not saying that you want to be filled with resentment towards anybody for any of the things that are going on in your life. What I'm suggesting is that if somebody else is responsible for what it is that you are in your life, I used to tell my patients when I had a practice out in New York years ago when I was teaching at St. John's University in Queens, New York, I used to tell them, I'd say, who is it that's responsible for all of these things about you? And they'd say, well, it was my culture and my parents, my mother particularly. Mothers take a big rap on all of this stuff. I'd say, so it was your mother? Yes. So I want you to leave my office, and I want you to go get her. And I want you to bring her to me, and I will treat her, and you will get better. Total responsibility for everything, even your illnesses, even your infirmities, whatever it is. If you're waiting for whoever caused it to change, then you're waiting for Godot, the famous play, and Godot never shows up. What are the payoffs? Like, all human behavior has a payoff, no matter what it is. All of these excuses, you get something from it. I'm just going to go through very quickly because I want to get to the next one. I like the next one a lot. All right? We continue with these excuses because they help us to avoid the real work of going within and becoming who we know we were destined to become. We have a calling inside of us that says, I want to do this, but there's something I'm avoiding, and if I use an excuse, then I have a ready cop-out. I'm safer. I can use these excuses to manipulate other people. I can use these excuses to be right. In all of my engagements and all of my conversations and everything, I just need to be right. I can use it to blame other people. I can use it to protect myself from anything that might be dangerous out there. I can use it to escape becoming a stronger, more vivacious, more intelligent, more dominant human being as a human being. So all of these are, and I've written books about this earlier in my career. It's not my purpose here to give you all of that, but know that all of your behaviors have built into them a payoff. The next question is one of the most important questions that I think you can ask. And this is a paradigm that if you get this, I think you'll be able to make the changes. What would my life look like if I couldn't use these excuses? If I just somehow a magic wand was passed over my head and it said, you can no longer think that it's going to be difficult. You can no longer think that it's going to be risky. You can no longer think in blame terms. You can no longer think you're too old, or that you're too young, or that you're too weak, or you're not strong enough, or whatever it might be. If you just couldn't think that, and I will ask people that question over and over again, and they start thinking about it, they start going into the excuse, I say, wait a minute, you can't think that in this little exercise that we're doing here. What would your life look like if you couldn't use the excuse? And you know what almost everybody says? I would be free. I would feel free for the first time in my life. If I couldn't blame somebody else, if I couldn't use one of these cop-outs, one of these misalignments that I've been using in my life, I would finally feel free. And then as you begin to realize that, I think one of the most important things that you can learn about this paradigm is to ask yourself, like, how would I feel? How would I feel? So the first question to ask yourself, any of you, about what it is that is something you've been hanging on to for a very long time, that is a part of your life that you find almost impossible to change. Even though you know what to think and you've been to all the seminars, you've read the books, you've done the right things, you still find yourself going back and slipping back into habituated ways of behaving and thinking, right? And what I'm suggesting to all of you here today is that in moments, like for every single person who this morning decided to do something about their sugar intake based upon what we did yesterday, you have demonstrated that you are now about to embark on a new way of being. You've demonstrated it. Even if you just checked a package and seen how many sugar grams were in what it was you were going to eat and then ate it anyway, it doesn't matter. Even if you smoke Pakalolo every single day and you said, you know what, maybe this isn't good for my brain, but I think maybe tonight I'll just think about it tomorrow. You're on your way. Because we become what we think about, whether we want it or not. If you have a choice to think a thought that may or may not be true, but thinking that thought will keep you from where you want to go, versus thinking a thought that may or may not be true, but thinking that thought will at least give you a chance to get to where you want to be, why do we continue to take the first choice when the second choice is the only option we have for changing our conception of ourselves? But we train ourselves through this subconscious meme training that we've had to start believing in things that are going to keep us from ever getting where we want to go. If you have a choice to think a thought that may or may not be true, but it will keep you from getting to where you want to be, versus thinking a thought that may or may not be true, but will at least give you an opportunity to get there, what's the choice? This is what Lao Tzu was telling me over and over and over again. Teach people to take the excuses that they use and to put them into a context that may or may not be true, and ask them to reverse it, and then pick the one that will at least get you to where you want to be. The woman that sat next to me on the airport, I've never forgotten her. She was a photographer here on Maui. She was doing a wedding, and then she was on her way back. We were sitting on an airplane on American Airlines, and she put above the seat a whole bunch of photographic equipment, and I asked her about it, and I said, what do you do? She said, I'm a photographer. I said, do you like it? Do you enjoy it? She said, yes. She said, but I'll never get rich at it. And I said, would you like to get rich? And she said, of course, who wouldn't want to be rich? And I said, let me see if I understand you. You would like to be rich, but the thoughts you carry around in your head are, I'll never get there. What's the reverse of I'll never get there? I will get there. It's on its way. In fact, I'm already here. Why wouldn't you think that thought? So now, the second question is, where did these thoughts come from? They came from you. You bought into all of this stuff. All of us bought into this little stuff. The I'm too young or I'm too old. Like our age has something to do with what we can create or do in our lives. There's endless examples of people who've overcome that. You know, Louise Hay started Hay House Publishing at the age of 61. It's 22 years. She's 83. CEO of the largest publishing company in the world on spiritual and higher consciousness materials. And she started it at 61 because she didn't buy into that meme. So what I say to you is that there were kids in school next to you who were told the very same thing that you were told. Your siblings were told the same things by the same mother. Some of your siblings didn't buy into that at all.
And some of them did, and some of them got scared. And what I say to you is, even though you didn't know it at the time, you were still making choices to buy it. If you're not willing to take responsibility for having chosen to carry around these beliefs, then you have no chance of overcoming them. You have as much chance as if you send your mother to me and I treat her and you expect to get better. It just isn't going to happen. So I say to you, the answer to the second question is, I chose them all. And I say that to you about everything, even your most serious illnesses. Take responsibility for it. It's yours. You own it. Don't feel yourself that you were being punished, that it was some karmic debt, that there was something bad happened in a previous life and you were an axe murderer and now you're getting this. Don't do that. But take responsibility for it, because the minute you say, I chose it, it's mine, I carry it around with me, I live with it, I breathe with it, I bleed it, which is what I do with my leukemia. That's what I do with it. It's mine, I own it, I took it on, and that's the only chance I have of saying goodbye to it. It's the only chance. I can blame this girl or that girl or my children or, all of the different traumas in my life. I can blame the environment. I can blame the food we eat, the mercury in the fish. I can blame it all, the Ayatollahs. It's got to be somebody else's fault. It can't be mine. I don't get leukemia. It's mine. I was a vibrational match to it. I take responsibility for it. And now the third question is, what are my payoffs? What do you think is the major payoff? I go through about 10 of them in the book. The payoff for using the meme, psychological payoffs, avoidance of doing what I came here to do. It's simply easier. Now here's the fourth question, and this is all I'm going to do. What would your life look like if you couldn't use those excuses that you've been using? If you just couldn't come up with them, if somehow I wired your brain in such a way that you could not think those three thoughts, what would your life look like? If you couldn't think the thoughts that you've been thinking that are keeping you from where you want to be, you would feel more joy, more accomplished. What I'm saying to all of you is that if you want to overcome any of the things that you think came to you as a result of abuse, abandonment, brokenness, despair, depressed parents, whatever it might be, certainly don't exclude that and just toss it out the window and say it's not relevant. But recognize that you just didn't have the strength then, but that was then and this is now.
So the bottom of this scale is 20. It's the very lowest thought that you can have. And it will always weaken you. Not only will it weaken you, but it will ultimately destroy you, such as its weakness. It's at 20, it's shame. So if you are using shame on yourself, or you're using shame as a way of parenting or working with others, what you are doing is you are always using an emotional energy that will weaken. The emotion that accompanies shame is called humiliation. And the life view is one of misery, and the God view, the view of God, is one of despising. God despises us. We are ashamed. There's something wrong with us. The next level up, which is very, very low and will always weaken you, is 30, is guilt. Feeling guilty. The emotion that accompanies it is blame. The God view is one of God as vindictive. God is punishing. And the life view is one of life is evil. There's something wrong with life. The next level up is one that's called 50. And this level is the emotion that accompanies that is despair. So that apathy and despair go together. The God view is one of God as condemning. And the life view is that life is hopeless. There's not much that we can do. The next level up is 75, which still weakens us. It's grief. The emotion is regret. God's view is disdainful. And the life view is one of tragic. Life is tragic. We are now moving to 100, which is called fear. And the emotion that accompanies fear is anxiety. The God view is one of punitive. God is punishing. And life view, frightening. Life is frightening. Now we move up to 125, what he calls desire. And the emotion that accompanies that is craving, always wanting to get someplace else. The life view is one of life is disappointing. And the God view is denial, denying. Now we move to 150. We are still at emotions and thoughts that you have that will weaken you. At 150, the emotion that accompanies it is hate. The life view is that life is antagonistic. And the God view is that God is vengeful. We are now moving closer to that which will strengthen us, to something called pride. Pride. And the emotion that accompanies pride is called scorn. The life view is that life is very demanding. And the God view is that God is indifferent. Doesn't care one way or the other. Now we move to 200. We are now making a distinction between being able to recognize truth from falsehood. This is called courage. And the emotion that accompanies courage is affirmation, affirming, life is affirming. The life view is that it is feasible. And the God view is that God is permitting. God allows us. All right. Now we move to 250. We are now talking about emotions and thoughts which strengthen us. At 250, trust is the emotion. Neutrality is the level of thought. The life view is life is satisfactory, and that the view of God is that God is enabling. God enables us. We move now to 310, what he calls willingness. Willingness. Whereas the emotion of willingness is something called optimism, an optimistic view of life. The life view is that life is hopeful. And the God view is that God is inspiring. Now we have moved from God being despising and vindictive and punitive and vengeful and indifferent and permitting and enabling to now God is inspiring. At 350, acceptance, the emotion is forgiveness. I accept and I forgive. The life view is that life is harmonious, and the God view is that God is merciful. Mercy. We now move to 400, where very, very few people ever get to, called reason. The emotion of reason is understanding. The life view is that life is meaningful. There's a meaning to all of this. And the God view is that God is not only merciful and inspiring, but God is wise. Wisdom comes with knowing God. Now we move to 500, which we're talking about a handful of people. The level is called love. The emotion is reverence. The life view is that life is benign, non-cancerous, non-debilitating. And the God view is that God is loving. At 540, the level of joy, where there is sadness, let me bring joy, remember. The emotion is serenity, a sense of just being serene in life. The life view is that life is complete. I am complete. And the God view is that all is one. All is one. At 600, the level of peace, the emotion is bliss. So it's not just serenity, but it's bliss, which is that wonderful, great, good feeling, continuous. Life view, life is not only complete, it is perfect. And the God view, all being. And finally, enlightenment, between 700 and 1,000. The emotion that goes with the sense of enlightenment is what he calls the ineffable. Ineffable. Life view, everything is. There's no judgment. And the God view, self. The self is God.
What follows is my 10-step program for implementing the intentions to attract the right people into your life. Step 1. Move away from hoping, wishing, praying, and begging for the right person or people to show up in your life. Know that this is a universe that works on energy and attraction. Remind yourself that you have the power to attract the right people to assist you with any desire, as long as you're able to shift from ego-driven energy to match up with the all-providing source of intention. This very first step is crucial, because if you can't banish all doubt about your ability to attract helpful, creative, loving people, then the remaining 9 steps will be of little use to you. Intending ideal people and divine partners begins with the knowing in your heart that it's not only a possibility, but a certainty. Step 2. Conceptualize your invisible connection to the people you'd like to attract to your life. Let go of your exclusive identification with the appearance of your body and its possessions. Identify with the invisible energy within you that sustains your life by directing the functions of your body. Now recognize that this same energy source flowing through the people you perceive to be missing from your life, and then realign yourself in thought with that person or persons. Know within you that this power of intention connects the two of you. Your thoughts of creating this merger also emanate from that same field of universal intention. Step 3. Form a picture in your mind of meeting the person or persons you'd like to have assist you or be in partnership with. Manifesting is a function of spiritual intention, matching up in vibrational harmony with your desires. Be as specific as you'd like, but don't share this visualizing technique with anyone else, because then you'll be asked to explain yourself, defend yourself, and have to deal with the low energy of doubt that will inevitably occur. This is a private exercise between you and your source. Step 4. Act upon the inner picture. Begin to act as if everyone you meet is a part of your intention to attract ideal people into your life. Share with others your needs and desires without going into detail about your spiritual methodology. Be proactive and stay alert for signs of synchronicity, never ignoring them. If a truck drives by with a phone number advertising what you need, jot the number down and call it. See all so-called bizarre coincidences surrounding your desires as messages from Source and act upon them immediately. I assure you that they'll occur repeatedly. Step 5. Take the path of least resistance. Resistance is lowered energy. Source is high energy. High, creative, expansive energy. When your thoughts are low energy vibrations, you simply can't attract the high energy people you need or desire. Even if they came rushing up to you announcing, "Here I am, how can I serve you? I'm willing and able," and carrying a sign saying, "I'm yours," you wouldn't recognize or believe them while you're so busy trying to attract more of what you can't have and don't deserve. Step 6. Practice being the kind of person you wish to attract. As I've touched on before, if you want to be loved unconditionally, practice loving unconditionally. If you want assistance from others, extend assistance whenever and wherever you have the opportunity. If you'd like to be the recipient of generosity, then be as generous as you can, as frequently as you can. This is one of the simplest and most effective ways of attracting the power of intention. Step 7. Detach from the outcome and practice infinite patience. This is the crucial step of faith. Don't make the mistake of evaluating your intentions as successes or failures on the basis of your little ego and its personal time schedule. Put out your intention and practice everything that I'm speaking about in this tape, and then let go. Create a knowing within and let the universal mind of intention handle the details. Step 8. Practice meditation, particularly the japa meditation, to attract ideal people and divine relationships. Practice the repetition of the sound that is in the name of God as a mantra, literally seeing in your mind's eye the energy you're radiating, bringing the people you desire into your life. You will be astounded by the results. Step 9. Look upon everyone who has ever played any role in your life as having been sent to you for your benefit. Everything and everyone in your personal history had to be there when they were. And what's the evidence for this? There they were. They were there. That's all you need to know. Don't use what transpired in the wake or the wrong people who showed up in your wake as a reason why you can't attract the right person today. It's your past, nothing more than a trail you've left behind. And finally, step 10, as always, remain in a state of eternal gratitude. Even be grateful for those whose presence may have caused you pain and suffering. Be thankful to your source for sending them and to yourself for attracting them to you. They all had something to teach you. Now be grateful for everyone God sends to your path, and know as a co-creator that it's up to you to either resonate with the high, loving energy of intention and keep those like-energized people in your life, or give them a silent blessing and a pleasant no thank you. And the emphasis is on the thank you, for that is true gratitude in action. Through relationships with others and by using the power of intention, we can radiate outward all of the energy necessary to attract what we desire. I urge you to move into this awareness now and know in your heart, just as the farmer in Field of Dreams knew, that if you build this inner dream, surely it will come.
I'd like you to imagine the following scene. You're in your house. You've got your car keys in your hand. The lights go out. Power failure. You can't see a thing. You stumble around in your living room and you drop your keys. And you look around for a moment and you realize that you're never going to find them in the dark. But you look outside and you notice that the street lights are on. So in your mind, a light bulb goes off. I'm not going to sit around here in the dark and grope around looking for my keys when there's a light on outside. I'm going to go out here under the street light and I'm going to look for my keys. Why are you laughing? This makes a lot of sense. So you're out here and you're groping around and you're looking for your keys and you're looking and your neighbor comes along and says, "What happened, Wayne?" "Well, I dropped my keys." "Oh, I'll help you look for them." And the two of us are now down here looking for our keys. And looking, finally he says to me, "Excuse me, but where did you drop your keys?" "Well, I dropped them in the house." He said, "You mean to tell me that you dropped your keys in the house and you're looking for them out here in the streetlight? Doesn't make any sense." And I said, "Well, it doesn't make any sense to grope around in the dark when there's light out here." Now you laugh and you think how silly that is, but isn't that exactly what we do when we have a problem, a difficulty, a struggle that is located inside and we're looking for the solution outside, someplace outside of ourselves?
If you were raised on blame, it is a habit for you to reach for this excuse whenever you wish to explain why something is not working in your life. You can, for instance, blame lack of prosperity on a lot of externals: your culture, the stock market, politicians, your parents, lady luck, the greed of others. You can blame illness on heredity and the flu season and bad luck or the environment. Your sour relationships can be blamed on your partners, their inability to love you, your upbringing, or your parents. Your personality can be blamed on your parents, or your genes, or your childhood, or your siblings, or your birth order. And your physical appearance can be the fault of genetics, the food manufacturers, advertisers, or the polluted environment. This is potentially an endless list. The alternative to blame is self-responsibility, becoming an inner-directed person. You may not have been taught to consider taking responsibility for the events of your life. But if you are unwilling to discontinue the blame game, you will be unable to initiate your sacred quest. When you are inclined to think that someone else is responsible for your circumstances, take an instant to say a prayer of thanks for the lesson. The lesson is to become aware that you are the one who is experiencing the feeling. You can do this the instant that you recognize yourself playing the blame game. Feel thankful toward those you've let anger you. Give inner thanks for the reminder that the feeling you are experiencing is inside you, not outside you. Say to yourself, "I do not want to be right. I want to know the truth. I want my higher self to rule. No one is to blame for how I am feeling. It is my feeling, and I respect that." These kinds of affirmations will lead you to self-reliance and to the way of the sacred quest. Your spiritual soul will then become the guiding light for the remainder of your time in the now here.
We are in the midst of enormous individual and global change. I believe that all of us who are living at this time chose to be here, to be a part of these changes, to bring about change, and to transform the world from the old way of life to a more loving and peaceful existence. In the Piscean age, we looked out there for our Savior. Save me, please take care of me. Now we are moving into the Aquarian age, and we are learning to go within to find our Savior. We are the power we have been seeking. We are in charge of our lives. If you are not willing to love yourself today, then you are not going to love yourself tomorrow. Because whatever excuse you have today, you'll still have tomorrow. Maybe you'll have the same excuse 20 years from now, and even leave this lifetime holding on to the same excuse. Today is the day you can love yourself totally with no expectations. I want to help create a world where it is safe for us to love each other, where we can express who we are and be loved and accepted by the people around us without judgment, criticism, or prejudice. Loving begins at home. The Bible says, "Love thy neighbor as thyself." Far too often we forget the last couple of words, as thyself. We really can't love anyone out there unless the love starts inside us.
I call it living from the end. This is one of the harder ones for people to get, but I'd like you to go again to the New Testament. Look at Romans 4:17. In the presence of him whom he believed God, who gives life to the dead and calls those things which do not exist as though they did. And calls those things which do not exist as though they did. Those are very important, significant words. You have to be able to call the things which you have not seen yet materialize and manifest into your physical world. You have to be able to say to yourself, I call those things that I would like to become as if they already do. And you place into your imagination fearlessly the I ams which you would like to create for yourself. And when it's time for me to write another book, I don't even know what it's going to be. I just know that it starts germinating inside me. And it's like a calling, it's like a passion. And it's as if I call those things, the book does not exist. I call it as if it did. I have a wonderful quote by the man I've cited before. His name is Neville, and it goes like this. He says, disregard appearances, conditions, in fact, disregard all evidence of your senses, that is what your eyes and ears tell you, that deny the fulfillment of your desire, whatever it is you want to attract into your life. Disregard appearances, conditions, in fact, all evidence of your senses that deny the fulfillment of your desire. Rest in the assumption that you already are what you want to be. For in that determined assumption, you and your infinite being, your extraordinary self, which is what this program is about, are merged in creative unity, and with your infinite being, God, all things are possible. God never fails, and you are a piece of that which never fails. And you are going to move beyond just being a piece and just being a fragment and just being a segment until it becomes your overwhelming knowing that you have within you this divine capacity. You don't need evidence of your senses. I wrote a book a few years back. The title of it, I had to get my publisher because they didn't understand it. They called back, they said, I think you got this wrong. I said, no. It's called You'll See It When You Believe It. Not the other way around. People will say, well, I'll believe it when I see it. It doesn't work that way. You'll see it when inside you have a knowing. And Neville also said, therefore, to incarnate a new and a greater value of yourself, you must assume that you already are what you want to be, and then live by faith in this assumption. Now, this flies in the face of so much of what you've been told, because you have a tendency to believe that what your eyes and ears tell you is reality. But this is what we know by our senses. Just this little tiny fragment. I can't even get, it's like a millionth of a millimeter. And all that is unknown is in the invisible, in the imagination. And most of our attention is focused on, this is my beliefs and my disbeliefs about what is possible and what isn't possible are here. And it's an endless universe. So placing I ams into your imagination is one thing. It's an intellectual act. Living from the end means that you call the things which do not exist as if they did.